Hey guys, this is the Betamax Man here. This is going to be a quick video. I had a YouTuber of mine ask how to get his stuck tape out of a Sony Betamax machine. He has a Sony SLHF 2100. The 2100 has the 711B3 chassis, and that is why I'm going to be using this particular machine. This is a Sony SLS 600, which has the 711B3 chassis. We're going to load up a tape, and then we're going to unplug the machine to simulate a stuck tape. So let's put a cassette in. Now we're going to go ahead and unplug it to simulate a tape that is stuck. So let's just say you've hit eject and nothing is happening. And maybe you powered it off and powered it back on and it still won't eject. It's completely stuck. What the hell do you do? Well, how do you get the tape out? Well, I'm going to show you. There is a loading motor that threads the tape around the head drum. There is a loading motor for the cassette housing that raises and lowers the cassette. So, first thing you want to do is turn this worm gear here. Now, I believe, let's see, we turn it, and you might want to take your other hand and kind of push back on the guide while you're unthreading it, and it'll kind of help get the guide unstuck, because sometimes the guide doesn't want to move unless you kind of use your other hand and kind of pull back. So use your other hand, one hand, just kind of pull it back like that. See, now it's released. So it's gotten released, so it's not stuck anymore. Now you can keep turning the worm gear, and you'll eventually see the fact that it'll start to unthread. As you can see, now we're cooking. Now we're in business. So we're gonna go ahead and just keep turning this until the guide is back into its home position. And once we get this guide back into its home position, then we can actually start turning the gear for the cassette housing, and the cassette will raise and eject. So we're gonna just keep going here, and because we don't want to make the video too long, I may edit this jump to a jump cut. Anyway, as you can see, we're getting the tape to unthread just by doing this. So my finger is going to get tired here, and it takes a while to do this, but eventually you will get it unthread. It just takes a little bit of patience, but it will unthread. And then once it's unthreaded, we'll show you how to get the tape to come up and out. So basically you're just doing everything by hand, and everything is going to be in super slow mode. When you're trying to do it by hand, you're doing it with your finger and turning the worm gear, and finger gets tired after a while. And I got some lithium grease on there because the old grease is kind of dried out. So now, and the reason I say hold the tape guide, push it back a little bit with one hand while you're unthreading it with the other hand, is because it'll help the guide unstick, because the guide doesn't really want to move. But when you do that, it will allow the guide to release the guide, and it'll break free, because the mode switch is actually gets activated and it kind of locks it in place. And so by pushing on it and then using your other hand and turning the worm gear will actually get the guide to unstick, and it'll get the guide so it'll actually start to move for you. And as you can see, we are almost there. We just plug it along here. I don't know if I'm going to do a jump cut or not, but I may not, because this will be good for you guys to see what it actually, how long it takes in real life. And once I know that I've got the unloaded here, and I'm turning the gear, you can see what direction I'm turning. So I'm making the worm gear go toward the right, and that's unthreading it. And eventually you'll feel that the guide is stopped. So now what you can do is simply just take one hand, kind of lift up a little bit on the cassette. You might want to just kind of come in the back here and just kind of help lift it up with one hand, and then you can literally take your other hand and unthread this. So by turning it this way, as you can see, the tape is now starting to lift up, but it does need a little bit of a helping hand. So with one hand, we're gonna help lift up on the tape, and then it's gonna come and lift right straight out. I've literally got my finger on this. And you're gonna have a little bit of tape damage, but there you go. And we'll just take your other hand and just kind of help move it out. We'll get it out of there, and now you got your tape. It is out. So we're just gonna take the tape itself here. Take the tape itself. We'll just kind of move it away from the guides so that we can get the tape out. Now what you can do is, you got two hands, it really makes it a lot easier, but you can now just take your hand and just push back, and now the basket is locked in place. It's went back to its home position. You could see that the worm gear was turning as I was moving the basket. If you want to unlock the basket, you push down on this tab. This is the white tab push down, and now the basket will actually be able to move now. So we can now move the basket by hand. But when you pull it back, you can see now it's locked into place. So this is the little lock, a little tab. And when the tape gets inserted, the tab gets released, and then the basket will go in, the tape will go in. So how do you get your tape back into the cassette? Well, there is a button that you can push right there. You push that button, and then you can actually get the door to open up. Or you can put a standard screwdriver, and there's a button right there too that you can pull back on. But the most common is to take a screwdriver and, like, say, push this button on the side here, and then this will actually lift up. But it's something I can't do one-handed, so, but all you gotta do is you just push in. Let's see if I've got a dental pick here that I can, here's one. So you can take your dental pick here. You can actually go right here, so you can pull back, and now this will actually, this flap will lift up now. So now the flap will lift up, and now you can take your, now make sure the tape doesn't get behind there, because if it gets behind that plastic tab there, it won't thread correctly when you go to play it in a machine. So make sure the tape is in front like this. Make sure the tape is in the front. If it's in the back like this, it won't thread correctly and it won't be watchable. The picture will be all messed up on it. So make sure you do that. And then you just take your finger and you can wind the tape back in. Okay, you can just do that. And we're going to get it wound back in. And that is what it should look like when it's wound back in. So I hope this video helps you. This is going to be covering the 711B3 chassis. Now the 711B3 chassis actually had a couple of different changes to it. And now the 711B3, the first 711B3 design is where the capstan motor drove the capstan and the take-up and supply reels. And then Sony had a lot of issues with this, where the capacitor would actually fail on the capstan motor circuit board. The capstan motor circuit board has a surface mounted cap, and it goes bad. And so in order to restore functionality, you just got to replace that cap. And it's a 47 microfarad at, I think, 10 volts. It might be 16. I think it's a 16 volt at 47 microfarad. Anyway, you replace that and you'll be able to restore your 711B3 chassis. If it's like this model, which is the SLS 600, which it drives the capstan and take-up and supply rails, and that's why on these machines, like when you get them, they're not going to work, where it'll load the tape and you can hit play and you'll actually have the light saying that it's playing, but it's not actually moving. The tape is not moving inside the machine. And that's because that capacitor fails and causes the capstan motor not to work. But what Sony did is they went back to the older traditional design as far as the reel table motor, and there's a motor that had a pendulum gear on it that would swing back and forth to drive take up and supply reel. So the reel table motor had its own motor with the B2 chassis, so they kind of went back to that. So the newer B3 chassis, they went back to that older B2 design where the capstan went back to being a direct drive capstan, and then they put an idler motor with the pendulum gear for the idlers. So yeah, but this is the first. So the SL HF360 has this design where the capstan drives the capstan and the take up and supply rails. So the S600, the 360, and they both have this design. There's a few other model numbers. I think the S400 had it. There were a few models that had this particular design, and this was actually not a bad design. It's just that, like I said, that cap goes bad and it causes them not to drive the tape through the machine. But if you actually turn the capstan with your finger, you will actually be able to turn the, but I can't do that because it's too freaking, you should be able to see, it should be able to kick, there we go, kick in, and we've seen the pendulum gear switched over there, but it's kind of hard to do it this way because it's such a shiny object and my finger just kind of, I can't really get it to move. But if you move the capstan, you'll see that it's driving the take up and supply rails. But yeah, so the pendulum gear, it has a pendulum gear, but the capstan is what drives the take up and supply rails on this particular model. And like I said, it's kind of hard to get the capstan here to move, but if you can get it to move, then you'll see that it'll actually drive the take up and supply rails. Let's see if we can get it to move this way. No, we can't. The only way to do that is, let me pull the bottom off, and we'll turn the capstan with the bottom panel off, and I'll show you that it's gonna work the take up and supply rails. Let's do that because I want to show you what this does. I want to show you the mechanism, so let's do that. Now the bottom panel here on this particular one, you don't need to remove the screws. All you need to do is loosen the screws up enough to where you can slide the panel. So you can actually slide the panel back and then lift up, because they've got these little cutouts, these little notches here. But I want to show you what this does, because the capstan does turn both take up and supply reels. I'm going to show you this because you guys need to know this information. This is something that is important for you guys to know, and I want to make sure that you guys can see what I'm talking about here. So I'm trying to prove to you that I know what I'm talking about. So that is why we're doing this, because there's so much false information out there. I want you guys to know that you can trust what I'm telling you is the truth. So let's get this thing pulled back. I'm going to need 2 hands, but there we go. Maybe I don't need 2 hands. And there we go. So now you'll see there's a belt coming from the capstan to the take-up and supply rails, just like I told you. This is the capacitor that fails. I've already replaced the surface-mounted cap with a real capacitor, a regular capacitor, I should say. The surface-mounted ones are silver in color, and they go bad. They start to leak. They spill all their guts. So try to replace that capstan or that capacitor early, because a lot of times that liquid can damage the traces, and it's very hard to trace the traces back sometimes. So if you've got one of these, to replace the capstan or the capacitor, I mean, replace the capacitor. Even if it's working, replace it. But 9 times out of 10 it's not going to be working. So, alright, now watch what happens when I turn this. Watch the other side, and we're going to turn. As you can see, I'm going to be turning. As you can see, it is turning the take-up and supply reels. If we go the other way, we can see that one's turning. Now if we go this way, and we'll turn that, and by the way, I'm just turning it like that. So that is how this particular mechanism works. And they went back to the traditional design, where they went back to a direct drive capstan motor for the capstan, and they went back to the idler motor. It was a pancake motor. So there's a pancake motor, and that turns the take-up and supply reel. So they went back to a direct drive system. Now the head drum is direct drive. So the video head's direct drive. But on this chassis, the capstan does two jobs. Capstan and take-up and supply reel, so just remember that. But that is what you want to do. Now, this is something that I didn't show you, but if you have this chassis, you can remove the tape without damage. You can turn this, and you can get the tape to go back into the cassette. So when you unthread it, take the bottom panel off, turn your capstan, and it'll thread the tape back into the cassette. And that way, when you turn the worm gear for the cassette housing, you can take the cassette out and not have an eaten tape. Tape will not be eaten or nothing like that. What you can do, like now, the person that's watching this video that has an SLH of 2100, what he will have is the other design, the older design, where they went back to the B2 style chassis, where it had an idler motor, a pancake motor. What can you do if you don't want to damage the tape? You want to get the tape back into the cassette. What can you do? Well, you could take the front faceplate off, and then there'll be like a circuit board on the front. You would want to remove that front circuit board, and then you should be able to get to the little pancake motor, and you'll be able to turn that and get the tape to go back into the cassette before, ejecting it. But yeah, so let me see if I've got a B3 chassis. Hold on, let me see if I can find that old mechanism from when I was working on the ED beta, so that I can show you the pancake motor and what it does and what it's like. So guys, this is from the ED beta. This is the one that had all the mounting tabs were busted out, and the loading ring is no longer able to function, so that's why I swapped out the chassis. But there's a pancake motor here. So once you remove the front faceplate, you remove the front circuit board, you'll be able to actually see a little cutout here. And you can actually turn this pancake motor and turn the take-up and supply rails. And then you'll be able to get the tape back out. So, as you can see, you turn that, and it's going to turn take-up and supply rails. I think you can see it. You should be able to see me turning. But you just turn that pancake motor, and what you'll be able to do is get the tape to go back into the cassette. So the tape will go back into the cassette. Oh, look how bad that pinch roller is. Holy cow, look at the sheen on that pinch roller. That is not a happy pinch roller. That is not a happy pinch roller. So, anyway, but the B3 chassis in the SLHF 2100 will look the same as this, except for they would have went back to the older B2 design, which is what you see here with a little pancake motor, and that will drive the take-up and supply rails. And so, but I actually liked this particular chassis, the original B3 design. I thought this was really cool, really neat, and it really simplified things. And this really does simplify Betamax VCRs. This was when they were at the end of life, you know. So this particular model came out around 1990. So 93 was the last year for the Sony Betamax machines. Anyway, so I hope this video is very helpful to you, and I just wanted to show you this design and how to get a stuck tape out. And, you know, yeah, this is the better way to do it. The better way to do it is if you've got like an SL S600 or an SLHF 360 or an SL S400, you know, and it has this design, just when you unthread the guides, you know, when the guides are back into their home position and you've unthreaded the tape, just turn the capstan motor and you will be able to get the cassette, the tape to go back into the cassette, the shell, and you will not have any damage. And then, you know, give it a gentle help to lift it up while you're ejecting it with the, you know, with this worm gear here, you know, lifting up the basket and stuff. So, always a good idea. So, this video, I hope, was helpful to you all. I know that this will also not only help you get a tape removed, but it'll educate you a little bit on what the 711 B3 chassis was, because there were two phases. This is phase 1 of the B3, and the other one is phase 2. So, hope this helps, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.